Interested in investigation and security? Whether you are already a professional or you are in the beginning stages, take all of your classes at the National Investigative Training Academy. Choose from over 200 courses, all written and taught by experts in the field. The National Investigative Training Academy, or NITA, has offered high-level investigative and security training for over 12 years. Like live classes, NITA has those too. Sign up today for private investigation and security courses and use brand ambassador code B as in boy, A as in Adam, 2367. Take a look at investigativeacademy.com. You'll find the link in our show notes. Welcome to Crossing the Tape, a mini episode. This will be our last one of the year, given it's December. Mm-hmm. And this time we'll have a little Christmas, I don't want to call it cheer, but a Christmas case for you.
Yes.
Please sign the crime scene log and join us for A Long Cold Christmas.
Christmas Day had arrived in Spokane, Washington in 1986. 62-year-old Dorothy Burdett decided rather than sit at home, she would take her Christmas cheer out on the town. She stopped into the Mayfair Cocktail Lounge down the road from her home. While Dorothy enjoyed her drink, a fellow in his late 30s saddled up to the bar and struck up a conversation with her. He was kind and affectionate towards Dorothy, and mentioned how much she reminded him of his late mother. If this was a made-for-TV cheesy Christmas movie, this would be the part where Dorothy invites him to Christmas dinner on her farm, he falls in love with her daughter, and the magic of Christmas brings him closure about his mother's passing. Sadly, real life isn't nearly that cheesy or predictable. Witnesses saw Dorothy Burdett leave with the unknown man, marking the last time she was ever seen alive. On December 26th, Burdett's body was found beneath Interstate 90 in the High Bridge Park area of Spokane. Her body was wrapped in a blanket. Evidently, she had been dumped there after being murdered. The condition of her body indicated she had been raped, beaten, and strangled. Investigators collected her clothing and the blanket while processing the scene. Witness statements were written down and composite sketches were drawn up. Despite the thoroughness of the investigation, no suspects were identified, and the case became as cold as a Spokane winter. Dorothy Burdett's murder would sit unsolved for nearly 20 years, but that doesn't mean her memory died with her. In 2005, Burdett's son asked detectives to look into her case again.
Good. There'd be more DNA advancements now.
Yes. Now, from the 1960s to the mid-2000s, a man by the name of Gary Trimble led a life of crime. He was a transient in Washington in the 1980s and ended up in prison in 1989 for robbing a 75-year-old woman at knife point. As it turned out, that was not the first time he targeted an elderly woman. After his release in 1995, Trimble went back to his home state of Montana, but he didn't change his ways there either. His crimes continued until 2007, when Trimble was arrested and convicted of felony intimidation after violently threatening a woman. He insisted she owed him money, and he forced her to write him a check, which ultimately cost him his freedom. Trimble lucked out, however, having his entire sentence suspended, with the provision he pay restitution to the victim and attend drug counseling.
Oh, brother.
Also, as is the norm with felony convictions, Trimble was required to submit a DNA sample for entry into the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS.
Good.
Not one to let an opportunity to screw up pass him by, Gary Trimble would fail to attend counseling and pay the restitution, eventually becoming a probation absconder in 2009.
Never learned.
Now, back in 2005, Spokane detectives reopened the cold case, as Dorothy Burdett's son requested. Detectives realized Dorothy's clothing and the blanket she was wrapped in likely contained DNA evidence, which hadn't been retested against modern databases. The items were submitted to the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab. Eventually, the lab was able to obtain DNA samples from the items and establish a DNA profile for a male. However, there were no matches in CODIS at the time, leaving the case cold once again. But a big break came on October 21st, 2010. CODIS staff contacted the Spokane detectives to notify them that Gary Trimble's recently submitted DNA sample was a match for the Burdett evidence. Wasting no time, detectives drafted a first-degree murder warrant for Trimble and coordinated with deputies in Montana to locate him the very next day. Trimble was extradited to Washington and in 2012 received a 17-year sentence after pleading no contest to a reduced second-degree murder charge. The no contest plea meant he didn't admit guilt, but he did agree that the evidence presented before the court would be enough to convict him. Trimble maintained throughout the trial he didn't remember any of these events that night. His lawyer would also argue that Trimble was most likely intoxicated, extremely, at the time and had no recollection because of his excessive drinking.
His DNA was just everywhere, that's all.
Right. Now, I'm not exactly sure why the defense attorney thought it would make anything better.
Right.
The voluntary intoxication. I may have told this story before, but I had a case of a domestic violence incident where a guy had beat up on his girlfriend, and it was a whole big ordeal. And his defense attorneys argued in court he may have done that, and we won't dispute any of those facts. However, he was drunk and does not remember them.
Like, that makes it better.
Why would that... What kind of defense is that?
Why would that help?
I may have driven drunk and crashed into a school bus, but I was so drunk I don't remember, so...
Yeah. That's...
Like, what nonsense.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
From what I understand, voluntary intoxication has been used successfully in court at some point, and there's some case law decision about it, but
it seems like in a murder case or something severe like a domestic,
right.
that wouldn't...
What jury
Why
is
is
going
that
to
an
hear,
excuse?
Right. What jury is going to accept, oh, he was just drunk. So
yeah.
It's fine that he murdered that.
That's worse,
that poor woman.
Probably.
He just doesn't remember it. Well, regardless, Trimble will have to spend his days in prison knowing he could have gotten away with murder if he had stopped while he was ahead. Unfortunately for his victims, Gary Trimble wouldn't stop until he was caught.
But good thing he was caught.
Yes. I'm glad you finally caught up with him. It's a shame that it had to be him, adding another felony conviction before his DNA sample was...
Well, right. And he terrorized women, for years.
Yeah, evidently.
So that's too bad, but I am glad that he was caught.
Yes, and that Dorothy Burdett's murder is now solved.
Yes.
It's no Christmas present, but it is some closure for her family.
True.
But what is a Christmas present is a little taste of what we're planning on doing here next year. Yes.
Our mini episodes will be a little bit different next year. In the past, we've either covered forensic history or facts. We did our Jack the Ripper series, and then we've done mini cases like this one today. But next year, we decided there will be more mini episodes. We'll have our 2 regular podcasts and then a couple more minis than normal. Mm-hmm. And we will be looking at the news and picking out recent cases and discussing them, since Brendan is an active duty officer somewhere, and I was a crime scene investigator and crime analyst and teach investigation classes. So as professionals, we thought it'd be kind of fun to go over cases that are in the news happening now.
Right, maybe things that are still unsolved, or events where an arrest has been made, some break in a case, or even trials that are ongoing and convictions, seeing how things play out in court, and we might revisit some throughout the year as more information comes available. Yeah,
we can circle back to something that doesn't have a conclusion yet, but we thought that would be something different and interesting for everyone.
Yeah, some more current events for us.
Right. And of course, our regular podcast will probably be rare older cases, because it's us.
Right. Yeah, we've got one in mind for January that I think is going to be a lot of fun, but you'll have to tune in to find out.
Thank you for listening. Please sign the crime scene log on your way out, and we will see you in 2025.
So long.
Stay safe.